Douglas MacArthur, the man, the one Lieutenant General, the really go right thing, made known for liberating the Philippines from the fascist invaders in the Japanese Empire. He also fought in the Korean War, but that is nothing compared to his hornpipe thing. Douglas MacArthur was born on January 16, 1880, to a military family. His father fought for the Union in the Civil War, where he won the Medal of Honor for his actions at the Battle of Missionary Ridge. Douglas MacArthur's parents had 3 sons, and Douglas was the youngest of them. # spoiled child. They lived in military posts until 1889, when the family moved to Political Town, USA, aka Washington, D.C. But then, in 1893, his father was posted to San Antonio, Texas, where Douglas attended West Texas Military Academy and was very sporty. He played tennis, football, baseball for the academy, and was the valedictorian for the West Texas Military Academy, y'all. His father sought presidential appointments to West Point for Douglas, but after 2 rejections, he was tutored by a high school teacher from Milwaukee, and after some of that tutoring, he entered West Point in the June of 1899, where he was a classmate of Ulysses S. Grant, the Chess, or if you're lame, the Third. In June of 1903, MacArthur graduated at West Point at the top of his class even, and he was assigned to the 2nd Lieutenant of Army Corps of Engineers, as it was customary for those who graduated at the top of the class. MacArthur was noted as the Army press officer, and after the U.S. joined the Entente in WW1, he was able to get President Woodrow Wilson to use the National Guard on the Western Front of the war. It was suggested that a unit be created with men from different states to avoid favoritisms from different states. It was known as the 42nd Division and was called the Rainbow Division. The Rainbow Division helped in a good amount of offenses in the war and ended up serving in other wars, like the Second World War. In 1919, MacArthur became the superintendent of the United States Military Academy. In 1920, got married and left the military academy. He sailed to the Philippines, which at the time was a military U.S. territory, I guess. That was a mess up.
In July of 1941, FDR called MacArthur back into active duty as a Major General, so he was called just in time. On December 8th, Philippine local time at 5:30, MacArthur was informed that the Japanese had attacked Pearl Harbor. And then MacArthur was told to execute the existing war plan, because, it isn't a coincidence that FDR federalized troops in the Philippines and made MacArthur active duty and head of the army in the Philippines. They were, expecting war. But when MacArthur was told, he did what I do when I'm told to do school. Nothing. But as MacArthur's forces couldn't hold off the Japanese, they were authorized to escape from the Philippines to Australia and relocate. On March 12th in the night, MacArthur and a select group that included his wife, so surprising, his son Arthur, even more surprising, and other members of his staff, used PT boats to travel in stormy areas. They were being heavily patrolled by Japanese ships. Eventually, they reached a place called the Delmont Airfield, which was an airfield. How could you guess? This airfield was in Madonna, and they were picked up by B-17s. My co-worker's favorite thing. A B-17 is a heavy bomber aircraft that typically had a crew of 10, but that's a possible other video. Anyway, they were picked up by B-17s, flown to Australia. Eventually, MacArthur got to Melbourne by train, and in March, a day before he made a famous speech, you might recognize these words that he said. I came through and I shall return. The speech was talking about the Philippines and how they will return and release the Philippines from Japanese rule. By April of 1942, MacArthur was the Supreme Commander of Southwest Pacific Area and started a campaign in Papua New Guinea. And by the end of the Papua campaign, they were able to secure Port Moresby as HQ for the SWPA, and the New Guinea campaign was successful. Now for the fun part, the rescuing the Philippines. In a conference with FDR, MacArthur stressed the importance to free the Philippines, and FDR agreed. So, on October 20th, 1940, he did return to the Philippines, and the Allies did win. After the Battle of the Lake, MacArthur gave a speech wherein he said, People of the Philippines, I have returned. By the grace of Almighty God, our forces stand again on Philippine soil concentrated in blood of our two peoples. We have come dedicated and committed to the task of destroying every vestige of enemy control over your daily lives, and of restoring upon a task of in restoring foundation of indestructible strength and the liberties for your people. Despite their win in the late, Japanese air raids still pestered their boats on the Gulf, where Macarthur would just be on the British boat. #awesome. And the Japanese never seemed to give up only until the end of the campaign in May of 1945. After taking the lake, Macarthur targeted Luzon because it would be a good airfield prospects, which would help them get air superiority and help them secure freeing the Philippines a lot easier. So they ended up capturing and taking Manila, where Macarthur hired Manuel Rojas, who was leading a Filipino resistance. But by 1945, Macarthur had successfully freed the Philippines, and after that he helped occupy Japan and was basically ruling Japan through the emperor for a minute. But that seemed like the end of his historical or hysterical military career for Macarthur. But would it be? In 1915, North Korea started an invasion of South Korea, which began the Korean War. This sounds like a new start of a new video, doesn't it? Well, it is. Don't lay your booty down and listen. After the invasion of South Korea from North Korea, the UN passed a resolution to protect the southern state, and they needed a general. So you know who they chose? It was worth waiting, wasn't it? Well, in the end, MacArthur was forced to retreat after a Chinese attack, and he was removed from command. The Korean War, never legally ended, though it has had a ceasefire for quite a long time, even to today. So what did we learn? Like how MacArthur has the greatest pipe known to mankind. And a few other things like part of World War II and stuff. Not important. But just like MacArthur had to be removed from command, we must remove ourselves from command of your entertainment. Have a good day. Like, subscribe, and share the video. See ya. See ya later.